Great. Thank you, Andries, for your time. I appreciate that we can quickly go through this opportunity that you would like to provide to the investors. I thought it well that we maybe just go through a couple of questions to just give the investors some information about this opportunity. I thought of breaking it down into three sections. The first section being introduction of yourself. Second section, a little bit about the deal. And the third section then being, what does the investor get and what can he expect? So let's start off with the first section of the introduction of yourself, please.
Nico, thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and the investors as well. My name is Andries WILKE. I'm a property investor. My former life, I was an environmental consultant. I still do part-time consulting, about 22 years experience in the field, mainly to the mining industry. And in 2015, we left full-time employment and more full-time focus on property investment and part-time consulting to keep the brain cells awake and keep things ticking over in that regard. I'm a director of a company called WILKE Investment Holdings. That's our holding company in our structure. And in the structure, we've got a number of subsidiary companies. This specific deal is in one of our subsidiaries called Windsor Lodging. We set up Windsor Lodging in 2016 as a special purpose vehicle specifically for the development of this block, which is called Jenna. My wife actually was involved in the block previously, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Right. So obviously this is not the first property investment opportunity you're dealing with.
No. Fortunately, I always say I was very lucky. My father, when I was second year varsity, decided to sign surety for me to buy my first property in Bloemfontein. While I was still studying, he put tenants in to make sure we could cash flow it. Interest rates then rose from about 20% to 24.5%. We had some very interesting times in those early days, but these days we focus primarily on the Randburg area. Windsor being part of the old Randburg town planning scheme, we know that very, very well. And I always say to people, we the guys who buy brothels and drug dens and convert them to accommodation for students and young professionals.
Upgrading, in other words.
Absolutely. Redevelopment and upgrading.
Fantastic. So just with regards to deal background, give us a little bit of information about this specific opportunity.
Certainly. Nico, Windsor Lodging in 2016 bought unit number 4 of Jenna. Windsor started in 1904, and in 1976 the whole area was earmarked for densification under the then Randburg town planning scheme, and it was all rezoned to residential 4. The majority of owners lacked the capital to actually build blocks of flats like the town council envisaged. And the majority of properties were either left as houses or they were converted into small townhouse complexes. This specific one is typical of Windsor. It's 4 units. You normally get 4 or 6 or 8 units on a stand. This one is 400 square meter units. And 2016, Windsor Lodging had bought unit number 4. My wife, she actually bought unit number 2 in 2005 and still owns it. So at this point, we control half the building of the 4 units, and we then agreed end of 2018 with one absent owner of unit number 1 to purchase his or effect the purchase of his unit before the end of this year. We had to take the unit over, rehabilitate it, lease it out again, and ensure that actually that the body corporate finances get in a better order with him being absent for a few years. It was quite a dire straits for the body corporate at that point in time. So we are at this point now ready to execute the transaction to purchase unit number 1, and that will effectively give us 75% control over the unit itself, which we will then look at approaching and negotiating with the owner of the last unit in order for us to control the entire property itself. The reason we're not approaching commercial banks at this point in time is that the moment we do get a commercial bond over one of the sections, it will be difficult should we choose to convert the entire unit back to a single title deed. And one of the redevelopment options would call for the entire sectional title register to be destroyed, the unit to fall back into a single title deed again. So we just want to keep our options open in terms of redevelopment and exit in that regard once we've got the entire building under control.
And like you said, that's also a reason why you don't want to go the bond route, because then you're going to struggle to rezone the property. Is that correct?
Well, the rezoning won't be the factor. It's already zoned residential 4. But the reality is then to convert it from 4 separate sectional title deeds into one title deed for the entire earth will not be possible. The banks will object against that. You will have to cancel the bank bond in any case and start where we are starting now by getting external financing until such time we can complete control over the entire building. Once controls over all 4 sections, then we'll approach the deeds office and simply cancel its sectional title register, and it will revert back to a single title deed again.
So based on due diligence, what is the chance that they actually wouldn't approve that then?
The chance they won't approve that is basically 0. Once all 4 units are registered in Windsor Lodging, they've got the right to choose to do that. It's an administrative process with a 90-day time frame according to my bond attorney. So there's not a problem in that regard. All 4 units are leased out at present with leases between 5,600 and 5,900 per month. So the whole entire building is cash flow generating. Windsor Lodging is getting about 11,000 Rand a month out of units 4 and 1. And then we're getting a gross out of about 7,000 Rand a month, which is ample for us to actually then repay the bond or the investor in terms of unit number 1, since we've already bought unit number 4 cash.
Yeah. Good. So this is a couple of the photos that you've sent through for outside and inside. You want to take us through a little bit of them?
Certainly. I think people who are not familiar with Windsor do get a bit of a heart attack. Windsor is right next to Cresta. It's next to Malibongwe. Yields or rental income in Windsor typically range between 5,500 to 7,500 Rand a month for a typical 2-bedroom, 100 square meter units. These units are all 100 square meters under roof, 2 bedrooms upstairs with a bathroom, a living room, kitchen downstairs, plus a garage attached to each unit as well. We're getting between 5,600 and 5,850 because the units are old. They need to get modernized. Should we choose to modernize them as they are, that'll be part of the phase 2, or we actually might decide to reduce the internal space and divide them into more units, and therefore we haven't spent capital on that yet. We probably, once we've dealt or completed acquisition, finalize that. Our architects is a company called Malarkey Architects. They've already completed 2 development schemes for us on the property itself, which will form part of phase 2 once the entire property is under our control, and we'll make a decision at that point in time, probably the next 6 to 9 months.
Okay, fantastic.
Let's. To answer your question, should we quickly scroll through some of the photographs? I think on the top left is the outside view of the building. Behind the vehicle on the right is my wife's unit number 2. On the left, unit number 1, which we're buying. On the right, you'll see the kitchen, typical 15, 20-year-old kitchen, nice white tiles. It's actually in a decent state compared to some other units in the area. Yep. As we scroll down, you've got a few more outside shots as well as inside shots of the building itself. It's overall in a reasonable condition, fully tiled. The living room is itself. The garden obviously needs attention. With the owner being absent for a period of 2.5 years, the garden took quite a beating, but also it's not a priority for us to improve on that, since the rental income is not at all related back to the condition of the outside of the building itself. Bathroom, as you can see, typical 20-25-year-old bathroom. The way it was built, probably the late 70s, early 80s, when the owners decided to build the townhouse complex itself.
And the plus point is you don't have to cut grass in this place.
Absolutely not an issue. The tenants do tend to sweep with a broom quite regularly, keep it nice and tidy. That's not a problem.
That's it, 100%. Fantastic. So let's just go over to what is required from an investor. What is the amount that you're looking for? How long will it take to pay it back? Return on investments and so forth?
Certainly, Nico. We're looking at it for an amount between 300 and 400,000, 350,000 sitting smack bang in the middle of that. We are purchasing the property at an amount of 385,000, but we do have funds to pay the transfer cost and the deposit cost, etc. So we're just looking for the bit of capital now to complete the transaction itself. If someone wants to invest a bit less, 300,000 is fine. We've got funds to fund that. If someone wants to invest a bit more, 400,000, we're quite happy with that as well. It gives the group a bit more cash flow for other deals as it is. From an investor point of view, they'll probably be locked into this transaction for a period between 6 and 12 months. It depends on negotiations with the owner of unit number 3, the last remaining unit. Should we not be able to negotiate in the next 6 months, and which is between now and basically March next year, a transaction is acceptable to both parties, we will put our units on the market and exit the transaction next 3 to 6 months after that.
And the likelihood of that person not wanting to sell?
We have had initial discussions. The person is in trouble with the body corporate and has not been able to rehabilitate themselves the last year or two. So there are positives in terms of them looking at selling to us. Nothing has been signed or agreed in writing yet. We first need to make sure we actually can secure unit number 1, complete this deal before we commit to the next step. But the likelihood, I would say, is between 75 and 85% at this point in time in that regard. There's a very slim chance that they would not want to sell. I think it probably will come down to an amount of numbers. The market value is typically around about the 425 to 450,000 rand price range for these units. Unit number 1, we're buying for quite a discount in that regard. And I think we probably need to lift our purchase price for unit number 3 to the 425 to 450 mark to secure that transaction.
Okay. And you were also talking about the repayment options for the investor?
Certainly, we would prefer to repay interest on a monthly basis. Interest typically being prime plus 5%. It used to be a 15% yield, now it's 12%. If an investor feels unhappy and would like a higher yield, because we got the cash from unit number 4, we're quite happy to look at a prime plus 7, which is currently 14% return on investment, with interest repaid monthly. The capital will get repaid at the end of the term when we secure a bond over the entire property and got under one single title deed. So probably in somewhere between 6 and 12 months from now. Gut feel says probably 9 months from now we'll be repaying the capital to the investor in that regard. And of course, at that point in time, we will be ready to talk with investors again to invest in the second phase of this. So investors shouldn't feel that they will be out of income. It'll just be that the investment will roll over to the next phase if they should so wish. And that'll be part of a separate capital raising, since that'll be quite a bit more capital required for that next step.
So ultimately, this agreement would be between your company and whoever the investor is, and it would also be secured through a legal agreement and drawn up by the attorneys, correct?
Absolutely. Legal agreement. Nico, you must correct me on this, but I'm sure Bruno's BROKERAGE will assist with that in that regard.
100%.
Security will be the lease income from the unit itself, unit number 1, to secure the interest portion of the loan itself. And yeah, we're quite comfortable in that regard, because the income from unit number 1 and unit number 4, there's ample capital in there, or ample cash flow in there to repay the interest portion. And then, as I've said, if we cannot secure the 3rd unit, we will actually exit, and upon sale, we'll return the funds back to the investor again.
Okay, and thank you so much. And I think you also said that if they need anything further, they are welcome to get in touch with you and have a discussion, and maybe just iron out some questions that they might have, which we might not have covered in this video. I'm sure you're happy with that, yes?
No, please, by all means, I'm quite happy with that. It's always nice to talk with people, and sometimes the investors do tweak your ear in something you've forgotten about, and sometimes gives you opportunity to explain to them what you're doing and they understand what you want a bit better, which makes future investments much easier again.
That is correct. Thank you for your time, Andries. I appreciate it, and we'll be in touch.
Pleasure, Nico. Thank you for your time, and yeah, looking forward to dealing with yourselves. All the best.
Thanks.